to go to. Some people are more spiritual, some people are more on this kind of the scientific realm, and I wanted to kind of, you know, get that point across in terms of spreading awareness, but equally what can we do for ourselves. How can we heal ourselves? How can we go, you know, to the next stage in our journey and kind of, you know, do it ourselves? And, you know, one thing on my website is that I put, and it's always, you know, the inner game is the most important game that you can play in life, but ultimately the only game that you can win, because really it's never anything external from us that has an impact on our lives that can really make a change.
Amos Madra.
Lis Hoyte, author, speaker, coach, and of course the author of the new book, Break Free. A very warm welcome to you. How are you?
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, I'm really good. Thank you. Thanks for this opportunity.
So, yes, we're here to discuss about your book, Break Free, part of TC Publishing. Talk to us about that book.
So basically I was in a coercive controlling relationship for 18 years, so it nearly spanned kind of 2 decades, and when I made the decision to leave that relationship, it was really hard for me to kind of understand what type of relationship I was going through, because it didn't necessarily fit into what I had grew up with in terms of the typical domestic abuse, for example, you know, the kind of physical violence, you know, horrendous things like rape and all of that sort of stuff. So I knew I was going through something that didn't feel right, but I couldn't necessarily place it somewhere. And actually it wasn't sort of until 2017 that I started to kind of you know, sort of speak out about some of the things that were happening to me, and other people were sort of saying, oh, actually, you know, there's this something that's come out, does it look like this? And then that's when I kind of started to pinpoint actually what type of abuse it was, because it was so hard that it didn't kind of match up with anything that I had known before. And so it kind of helped me to one of the main reasons why I wrote the book was because I wanted to spread awareness of coercive control. But equally, I wanted to help people to understand that who were going through it, to understand what they were going through, because it was so difficult for me to understand what I was experiencing. And ultimately, when you're not sure what you're going through, it's really hard to reach out for that help and support. And so that was really the main reason for writing the book, was to spread awareness of coercive control and to also help other people to understand their lived experiences within such relationships.
Incredible. And I can imagine, you know, it would have been subtle the way it started, because if you'd seen it, you would have run for the hills. And
exactly. Yeah, and that is the thing with kind of any sort of coercive control relationships. It happens kind of incremental over time, so you don't necessarily see it happening. It's kind of like little comments that kind of what you perceive as, oh, you know, he or she is trying to be you know, nice about things, or trying to be supportive about something. You get to work out that actually it's not about that, and those little things, those things that happen incrementally that are said to you over time, it starts to chip away at you. So, you know, for example, it could be, you know, oh, is that what you're wearing? And you're kind of like, oh, well, why, what's wrong with it? What's right with it? And then nothing. So you're kind of left with this sort of silence of, okay, then you don't really take it as anything, or comments that could surround kind of, you know, what are we having to eat tonight? And it's like, okay, I'm going to do this. And then the meal gets chucked in the bin. So all these little things that you're doing to kind of make things right and kind of make the relationship okay, it's very subtly done as something, you've done something wrong, or it's your fault. And I always found that was really hard for me to understand, because in my mind I was trying to do the right thing, but it was almost met with this kind of adversity of, no, it's not right, it's not good. And then you start getting put downs, which can seem quite subtle, you know, oh, that doesn't look really nice on you, or I'm telling you it because I don't want you to go out and look ugly, I don't want you to this. And it kind of makes out that, you know, what's been said to you is to help you. And I think that's where a lot of my confusion came into it, because you kind of look at the person that you're with and you don't think that they're necessarily gonna say something like that to you in order to hurt you, you do see it as they're trying to be helpful and supportive. So I think that was definitely something that I wanted to kind of make clear within the book as well, that, you know, it's, you know, when somebody loves you, they're not gonna put you down. It's about kind of realizing as well what a healthy relationship is. And actually, I didn't, you know, the truth of the matter is I didn't really know what a healthy relationship was for so many years. I thought that was healthy. I thought it was helping me, until it got to sort of, you know, different parts in the relationship where I wanted to branch out and do a master's after, you know, being a stay-at-home mum. And that was met with such adversity and such sabotage to stop me from doing that and completing that master's. So, but yeah, definitely going back to kind of like what we were talking about initially, it's definitely happens incremental over time, and you don't sort of see it, hence the reason why people end up staying. But then people end up asking the question, well, if it was that bad, why did you stay? And it's hard to answer that question, because, you know, as human beings, we want to be right, don't we? We want to please our partners, we want to do all this stuff, so we don't see it as, you know, oh, I need to get out of this, especially when you think they're trying to be helpful about certain things. So it can be a roller coaster in your mind in terms of, you know, why did I stay? Why didn't I stay? And sometimes it's just as simple as you want to just make things right and you want to please your partner. And depending on who you are, sometimes you take on a lot of, you know, the faults and whatever was wrong with the relationship, and you want to make it right. So I think it's just about finding yourself really and growing on that really.
And I suppose the pressures, external pressures from family and friends as well,
Yeah.
Keeping up appearances and again trying to please your partner as well, that all takes its toll as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I do think that kind of, you know, I remember going through a really tricky time, because I was always having that internal and that external battle. So on the outside, people saw my life as, oh, it's wonderful. You've got, you know, you live in a lovely place. You've got 2 beautiful children. You know, you can do this, you do this, you do that. Everything just seemed okay. So on the outside, you know, people would say things like, gosh, oh my God, I wish my partner would, you know, buy all the Christmas presents. Oh, you're so lucky, you know, whereas actually internally, those things were done to make me aware of how incapable I was. You know, simple things like wrapping up a Christmas present. It wasn't something that I ever did for my children because it needed to be done right. But people saw this as, oh my gosh, I wish my partner was like that. And so in here, it's like, that's really breaking me, because as a mum, that's something that I really want to do. Whereas externally, there was that battle of, God, you know, your life is great and amazing. So it's definitely that battle that I had that I really struggled with for a long period of time.
And did you feel your confidence ebbing away? Did you feel
yeah,
that self-control being
absolutely
taken completely away from you?
Yeah, definitely. And I think as well is because, you know, when you're in these types of relationships, it's that kind of trust as well that you actually build up, because you do have your version of what you believe love to be. So you end up, you know, loving this person, and you believe in what they say, you believe their words, but actually what's happening to the actual individual that's going through it is that you're being most things that can kind of empower you, that you can have control over, even the smallest things are taken away, and that's what makes you feel as though you don't have control over your life, or that you're losing control over your life. And you know, certain punishments are, you know, if you do start to make choices and decisions that you want to do that will change your life, you kind of, you know, that negativity to doing that can be so much to bear while you're trying to kind of navigate and cope with the rest of just living a normal life with somebody who is very coercive and controlling in their behaviors. So it's yeah, it's about kind of making that decision and sort of, you know, almost stepping back and looking at yourself and looking at your experience from a position of somebody else looking in and going, actually, what advice would I give to somebody when I see them like this? And while it's really hard to be able to do that while you're in it, that's kind of the first sort of steps that you need to do in order to be able to begin to break free from these types of relationships.
as you began to realize that you were in a coercive relationship, did you start to make plans to leave? Did you start to reach out to other people? And did you feel guilty as well for doing what you were doing, wanting to leave?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I had some very close friends who were who had seen certain incidents, who had kind of been there over the years, so they kind of knew what I was going through. And so it was those people that I kind of reached out to, and I kind of first started out, and I do say this in the book, that it was about almost understanding, because there was so much gaslighting that went on. And for those people that are not aware of what gaslighting is, it's basically a distortion of your reality. So because there was so much of that going on, I kind of didn't really know my own mind. So in order for me to kind of get a grip on that, first off, if I'm going to leave, I need to know if it's me. I need to know if I'm going crazy. And I used to send, sort of logs to a friend of mine of arguments or conversations that me and my partner at the time had had. And as I started to do that, she was obviously building up her log for me. And then I remember one day, I think she was checking up on me or checking in to see if I was okay. And I had said, oh, they've been out again, but they've said they're sitting right next to me and I feel like I'm going crazy. And she was like, what date is this? And I remember her sending it back to me, and it was all the dates, all the logs were there of all the arguments that we had had where, they had said that they hadn't been out and that I was going crazy and that this is not fair on them. And that really was the first step in getting my head right, knowing where I was going, what I was going to do, and actually how much of this person, it was so, how much of the relationship as a whole was really toxic to be in. And after I kind of got a little bit of confidence from that, I then decided to kind of make a plan. Right, what do I need to do for me and my children? Because at that point in time, I wasn't necessarily strong enough to really make that decision for me. And people talk a lot about, it's about the self-care, you've got to care about yourself, but I just couldn't do that at that point. So it was important that I focused on my children and said, how do I want to show up for them? Is this what I want them to see? And that was enough for me to kind of get the ball rolling in terms of, okay, I need to look for a place. They've made it very clear they're not leaving. They've made it very clear we're not selling the house. They've made it very clear that's just not happening. So I've either got to stay in that or I've got to leave my family home. And that was, I think, probably the hardest decision that I had to make. And then I did, and I left the family and I left with my children, and even leaving, because you then have to go through the post-separation abuse, which was hard, but it was just making that first decision of I've got to leave, I've got to go. And I did kind of like store things, to answer another one of your questions. I did go and kind of store things at friends' houses because obviously I needed everything new, made it very clear that I wasn't going to take anything. So, where do I get, I haven't got hardly any money. I've got to get beds. I've got to start scratch. I've got to literally start everything from new. So I would kind of have my friend and I would drop stuff off at their house, because I knew that, if they had ever knew what I was doing, that there would have been something that they would have done to sabotage it or to stop me from going. So I do think that you do become sort of quite secretive. I did anyway, and that feeling didn't feel great either. So I did feel quite guilty about that. But then when I then look back and think, actually, I had to do what I had to do, because it was a case of staying in that relationship or leaving, and not being honest about my actions and what I was doing. But I had to do that because those actions that I was planning to do to get away would have been sabotaged in some way, and I probably would have ended up staying. So yeah, there was an element of guilt there, but ultimately I kind of look back now and I know that I made the right decision for myself and my children. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
And you're brave and courageous to tell your story as well. And there's lots of people, unfortunately, who are going through similar situations, but finding a way out is so difficult. And again, it's relocating yourself and mentally, first of all, and then starting to plan and look to the future. Sometimes it can be difficult when everything
Absolutely.
is just in a haze and you just don't know right from wrong. You wrote your book, You spoke about your paradigm, your mindset. Talk to us about that, how that's helped you up to where you are today.
Yeah, so I guess the first thing, that I did was the making a decision. And I think that, back then, after really so many years of knowing something wasn't right, I finally got to that point once I'd kind of got a rough idea that actually I wasn't going crazy and I wasn't insane. It kind of almost gave me that motivation to go, right, this is the time where you need to now make a decision. So that was the first thing that I did. I made the decision, and actually it's so powerful being able to make a decision, because I think sometimes the scary thing about making a decision is we don't know how it's going to work out. Sometimes we would rather stay in the uncomfortable, but we know what's going to happen. It's expected, so we feel more comfortable there. So I think that the scary thing about making a decision is that, oh my God, it's the unknown. I don't know. But ultimately, that was actually the best decision that I made, and I think that anyone can make in terms of going through an abusive relationship, is that make the decision. Because when you go into the unknown, yes, it's the unknown, but I think you start to put yourself on the path of making those decisions and choices which will ultimately change your life. Because while you're changing your life, you're shifting your paradigm, i.e. you're shifting your subconscious beliefs and your programs of what kept you stuck really in the past. And through repetition, when you keep making the decisions and you keep making those changes, you start to get stronger, you start to build that confidence. But it has to start with kind of making that decision. And I take that into every situation that I'm in my life now. I always make decisions, and I tend to make quick decisions as well. I don't let the subconscious kind of creep up and try and change the decision. Sometimes I kind of, I get that feeling. It's that kind of intuition. Okay, do you know what? This is the way I'm going to go. And there was always going to be a little bit of fear when you make a decision, because you don't know the outcome. But actually, sometimes being in that space, being in that, oh my gosh, I'm a bit scared about this, is the best way to go. And that's what I've found. And that's helped with my mindset, in that, that there isn't anything now that I don't think that I can focus on and achieve, because I know that I've decided, and I know now that I can, I do believe that I am the creator of my own life. And kind of making those decisions, it fills you with confidence and empowerment in order to make changes. And I'm not saying that process is easy, because it isn't, because we have, years and years of, living our life based on the experiences that we've had, the memories that we've had. And we do end up, to a certain extent, reacting to life as opposed to responding to it. But I think by making decisions for the future and responding to things and taking a step back really does help.
Yeah, it's a complete transformation, paradigm shift from, a low self-awareness to a high self-awareness. That awareness was always there, but it was low at one point. And obviously now, transforming yourself to a higher self-awareness and using the tools that are around you to help equip you to be consistent in that. And I think what's interesting as well is this can be applied to pretty much anything. Someone going through addiction or through issues in life where they're just trying to shift their way of thinking.
Absolutely.
It seems that
definitely.
this book can apply to anyone in that situation.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think also when I kind of, when I was, writing the book and, kind of having conversations and that with, with Tanya and the editing team, it's something that I really wanted to do was kind of come at things from a spiritual level, come at things from a scientific level, to kind of cover as many thoughts out there, kind of, depending on what you believe more or what you'd be more inclined to go to. Some people are more spiritual, some people are more on this kind of the scientific realm, and I wanted to kind of, get that point across in terms of spreading awareness, but equally, what can we do for ourselves? How can we heal ourselves? How can we go, to the next stage in our journey and kind of, do it ourselves? And, one thing on my website is that I put, and it's always, the inner game is the most important game that you can play in life, but ultimately the only game that you can win. because really it's never anything external from us that has an impact on our lives that can really make a change. Once in here, once we've got to a place where we're, we have that self-love, we have that self-care, we have all of that. It's about paying less attention to the external. And while so many of us do that, there's still elements of me that do that today. It's hard. It's the human condition. But just having the awareness that actually, do you know what, I'm going to pay a little bit less attention to things that I just have no control over, and pay more attention to the one thing that I do have control over. We do start to see our lives change slightly, little bit by little bit, and also pay attention to how we're feeling, how we feel moment by moment. And we can either live in the past, which is really tricky to get out, hence the reason why we need those paradigm shifts, but equally know that we have where you want to go in the future. What do you want your life to look like in the future? But always remember, the only thing that we actually have control over is now. That kind of now, that space now. What are we doing now? How are we feeling now? What frequency are we on now? Because that is so powerful in terms of determining our life. And so that's something that that I would kind of say to just kind of anyone out there. It does apply. It's almost, it is just kind of the human condition, and it's our lives. And while it's really hard to understand that when you're going through a tough time, believe me, I know, just little bit by little bit, and concentrate on how you're feeling moment by moment, and eventually you do start to see things change in your life. Absolutely.
Yeah. That's really interesting. Again, going back to what you said before, it starts with making a decision. And then again, you said that, you make your decisions very quickly and you stick to those decisions. Yeah. And again, just, knowing what can I do now to strengthen myself. These are fantastic tools. And again, you offer this with your coaching as well. And, you can see the value in that and how that can help individuals to overcome whatever it is that they're going through.
Yeah, absolutely. And ultimately that's kind of, when you do get to a point in your life, and I think we all have we all have it in us, we all have a purpose, and this experience took me to my purpose. It really did. And I know that sounds kind of cliche, we all have one, but I kind of have, I live my life by, I don't want to leave this physical plane without knowing that I did my best to fulfill my purpose, and that is to help and serve others. That kind of that higher level of consciousness, that wanting to help, wanting to serve. What can I do for you? How may I serve? And when I kind of switch things round by just my whole outlook on life, what can I get? What can I have? What can I get? When I changed that and kind of said, no, what can I give? It kind of puts you in a totally different mindset. And it's just a really good feeling. I'm not saying it's not a good feeling when you get stuff. I'm not saying that, but what I am saying is that kind of that desire to help and support others is a feeling like none other. And it's a great feeling. And that's one thing that I wanted to do from starting this. It was never actually, it didn't even begin with me. I wasn't strong enough to, or value myself enough for this to have begun with me. It began with wanting to spread awareness to help other people, to clarify what they were going through. And it's worked out great, because I'm doing now exactly what I want to do. And I wake up with purpose, on purpose, and I go to bed thinking about how I'm going to fulfill my purpose the next day as well. Whereas I didn't have those thoughts before. It was really hard to even wake up and want to get out of bed. So that in itself has been a massive shift in me, and I do believe that with the right focus, and with that kind of the ability to make decisions, that's something that we can all have in our lives at some point.
Absolutely, it's incredible just hearing your journey and how far you've come from the coercive relationship to finding yourself, being more self-aware, to now empowering other people, giving to other people. And you're an incredible person. You've done what you've gone through. I cannot even start to imagine. You know, as you said, it started subtle, but then you find yourself in this dark world where you don't know where you are, you don't know right from wrong, you don't know what's
Yeah,
going on. It's your brain's in a complete fog, but you've got absolute clarity now. You can see clearly what you need to do. You found a purpose through
yeah,
this journey, and you found your calling, which is incredible. And of
yeah,
course, this
absolutely.
book tells everything. How can
Yeah.
our audience get hold of this book? Where is it? Where is
Yeah,
it
so
available?
it's available on Amazon. It's available WH Smith, Waterstones, Lulu, Draft Digital, and so yeah, and the cover is quite it's quite obvious that it's kind of very much me, and yeah, and it's but and equally, just one thing to say as well is that it's really important that sometimes when people are going through coercive control, other people around them can see it way before they can see it. And sometimes, it's about actually educating yourself to be able to maybe sort of ask these questions, and learn the tools yourself to be able to help and support someone close by. And that's why this book is so important, because somebody could read it, who is going through it, but equally somebody who knows somebody that's going through it can read it and actually start to get a bit more confidence and understanding of coercive control, but equally be able to reach out and help and support other people. And I think that's the key, isn't it? Sometimes we don't see it when we're in it. That's the whole point. It's one of the main reasons why we say we don't see it.
Yeah,
But if we can kind of educate ourselves and learn and support each other, in terms of affecting change with policy, with practice, we can all kind of move mountains. And I think that's the really positive thing to hold on to and focus on.
incredible. And through this book, you've got speaking engagements, you're coaching, you're doing all sorts of things.
So just doing the coaching program, which is 12-week program, 3-month program. There is also a 6-month program available as well, and it kind of goes through the tools, a lot of the tools in the book, but also tools that are specific to people, because everybody's situation is different. It's about the practicalities. It's about, okay, this is what I need to do, this is what I need to do, and then a kind of healing journey as well, looking at certain behaviors that we tend to exhibit, that don't necessarily serve us, and it's about kind of identifying those, so looking at what we can, what we can't control, where's our focus, what are we doing, and so it was kind of like making sure that the coaching program was able to help and support as many people, but as in many different situations as possible. Speaking engagement. So my first on stage speaking engagement was the 27th of November. You kind of got that really nervous bobble in your throat. And I thought, when I first started, I was like, yeah, this is going to go. No, it stayed for the whole time. But I'm so glad that I was able to do it. Because ultimately that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to become a certified speaker. I wanted to write a book, wanted to have a coaching program, and it's great now, in talks with the wonderful Stephen Chamberlain, who's the CEO of Active Learning Trust, and kind of getting together and in the new year wanting to work on the curriculum within schools, it kind of like spreading awareness of coercive control and domestic abuse. And I think that's kind of the next stage in what's happening, which is wonderful, because I think spreading awareness is key. And once we can do that, we can talk about it. So it's not a taboo thing. It's not, oh no, I don't want to go there, I don't want to kind of talk about. Let's talk about it, because the more we talk about it, the more we can help and support each other. So I'm really chuffed about what's happening with it all, really chuffed about what's happened, and I'm just going to continue to do it. I'm not leaving this physical plane without carrying on. This is where I'm at now. So
I love it. Absolutely brilliant. And the best part is you found your purpose, you found your calling, and you just seem to be living life now to its very fullest and finding the
yeah.
reason for living, which is
Yeah,
incredible.
absolutely. And it feels good. It feels great. And just get to the stage. Sometimes I wake up in the morning with like the biggest grin on my face, which has not usually, it hasn't really been a thing of my life. It's still very kind of new to me, and it's going into those different things, waking up in the morning, giving yourself a little high five and a little wave, and just saying, I'm grateful. I'm grateful that my heart allowed me to wake up this morning, just being grateful for the little things, for the basics, those basics that sometimes we forget, but actually if they were taken away, where would we be? And that's kind of, that's, I genuinely live my life now, is that, nobody knows enough to be a pessimist. We're all teachers and we all have so much we can learn from each other. And I think that's the great thing, just interacting with people of all walks of life is just, it amazes me every day. And it literally does bring a smile to my face, but it kind of, and you kind of feel like you've got so much in your heart, you need to get rid of it, you want to give so much. And that's where I'm at now. So, and that's a really good place to be, because, believe me, I wasn't always there. And I haven't, even though I sit here and I talk about how things are working well, there's that true understanding of how hard things can be for people in this position, in this situation, and in many other situations as well. So it's not to take away that, it's about saying, let's make a decision and see where you go with it. Just try something a little bit different every day, every morning, every night, and see where that takes you.
Lis, you're incredible. You're absolutely incredible. And before I let you go, how can we get hold of you? Your website, social media handles?
Yeah. So my website is www.lisreallywhat.com. And yeah, any social media, so on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, just literally Lis Hoyte, LISHOYTE, and you'll kind of see me. It's actually a very similar picture to this, or this. So, but you'll be able to spot me. But yeah, just DM me or message me, and I'm available and I'm here, and I'm still going to be putting in time for people that need that help and support over Christmas, because we have Christmas as, it's a lovely, wonderful time. Actually, sometimes let's take a step back and think about those who aren't having such a great time over Christmas, who are still in these types of relationships, who just need as much help and support as they would at the beginning of the year or the middle of the year,
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for sharing your experiences with us. And again, I can't begin to think about how things were when you were going through that dark phase, but then to come out of it, but to come out of it so strong, to come out of it so self-aware, so empowered to help other people and to find a purpose. That's the best part. I just want to
Thank you so much.
Thank you. If you want some amazing inspiration, check out the videos next to me, and I'll see you right there.